Every family has a beginning, and every beginning has a story that was never written down. This is a story of the Hallways, a fictional family inspired by the real struggles that millions lived through in the early 1900s. Their world was harsh, their choices were few, and survival was only guarantee. It was January 1911 when winter truly settled over the Hallway home. Their wooden houses, built by Samuel Hallway's father, creaked under the weight of the ice on the roof. Inside, the air was so cold that every breath hung like smoke before fading into the dim light. Margaret Holloway woke first, as she always did. Her hands were stiff from the cold, and her apron was worn thin from years of use, but she moved with quiet determination because her 3 children depended on her to make the worst days feel survivable. Ella Holloway, 13 years old, already carries the responsibilities of a grown woman. She cooked, cleaned, and kept her young siblings in line. Thomas, 10, followed his father everywhere, always asking questions about tools and work. And Grace, only 5, the heart of the home, always smiling, even when the world around her felt cold and uncertain. But on the morning, Margaret's worry was heavier than the frost on the windows. Their food supply was shrinking faster than expected. The winter was longer, prices at the general store were higher, and the garden harvest from the fall lasted like they hoped. Margaret quietly set aside her own breakfast, giving the larger portions to the children. Mothers did that back then, carrying their fears slightly so their kids wouldn't see the cracks. The children bundled their thin coats for their long walk to school. Ella held Grace's hand. Thomas stomped footprints into the frozen snow ahead of them. Their breath puffed out into the morning air as they walked nearly 2 miles. This wasn't unusual for children in 1911. Hardship wasn't special, it was simply life. Meanwhile, Samuel Holloway had left before sunrise carrying a dented lunch pail and a head full of unspoken worry. The lumber mill was the lifeblood of town and the most dangerous place a man could work. Whistles, saws, falling logs, and the constant risk of injury made every day feel like a gamble. On this morning, he paused before entering the mill, staring at the steam rising into the sky. He knew food was running low at home. He knew winter might outlast their savings, and he felt the pressure of providing the way only a father in 1911 could understand. By midday, the mill was alive with noise. Men shouted orders, saw chewed through giant logs, steam hissed from the machinery, and then it happened. A chain slipped, whipping a massive log sideways. Samuel reacted instantly, pushing a coworker out of the way. The log crashed down, splintering the platform and sending sawdust into the air. Silence followed, cold, terrifying silence. Samuel stood there, breathing hard, inches away from what could have been the end. He brushed the sawdust from his coat and kept working, because in those days, fear didn't feed your family, work did. That evening, Samuel walked home slower than usual. The cold bit through his coat. The smoke from nearby chimneys curled into the dark sky. He reached the house and saw the warm glow of the oil lamp inside. Margaret greeted him with a tired smile, one that hid her fear just as well as he hid his. At dinner, he held his children a little tighter. He sat longer at the table. He stared into the fire as if looking for answers, but he didn't speak about the close call. Not yet. Men in those days rarely shared their weight they carried. But deep down, both Samuel and Margaret felt the change coming. The winter was far from over. The food would not last, and the meal, dangerous as it already was, would soon demand sacrifices from more than just Samuel. This was the winter that tested Holloway's family, a fictional story, yes, but one that represents the real struggles countless families faced during the early 1900s. And this is only the beginning.